In this video, I'm going to take a look at the Thomas & Friends All Engines Go Motorised 3-packs. One of them's called Frosting Diesel, as in cake frosting. The other one's called Splash Tank James. But before we get into this, we're going to have a very serious chat about a very important thing that's appeared in the Thomas & Friends realm. Warning. The warning on this video has been removed, and this video is intended for people who have a mature mindset. If you're a snowflake style of person, this video is not for you. So many people have asked me, Leo, what's your opinion about the saved and restored Thomas & Friends pilot episode called Down the Mine from 1983. I've got a few things to say about this episode. I'll have a link to this episode down in this video. I ask you, please go and watch this. It's a very important video to go and watch. Remember, it's been saved by Mattel. That's important to point out as well. They'll tell you that when you go and watch this video. The first thing I'll point out, and I looked at the views that it pulled in very short time. I'm talking about this 4 days after it was put up onto YouTube. Within 4 days, Down the Mine, the pilot episode had achieved 483,000 views. At the same time, in the Thomas & Friends YouTube channel, they released All Engines Go Great Dragon Race plus 60 minutes of All Engines Go Terror. It achieved 8,000 views in 4 days. So remember, Down the Mine achieved 483,000 views, and an hour's worth of All Engines Go content released at the same time achieved 8,000 views. What message is that sending to Mattel? I wonder. The Down the Mine's pilot episode reminds all of us that when Thomas & Friends is done correctly and sticks to the rules, the magic happens. As soon as you start to stray away from a known formula here, you start to develop a train wreck. And boy, oh boy, we have suffered some train wrecks over the last number of years. What I like about this story, it's very simple. Number one, it's nice and short. It's divided up into 3 sections. It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, and it's got an end. Very important to do this. In part 1, you have Thomas and Gordon together there at a station. You learn a bit about Gordon, needs to be respected, but you also learn that Thomas is very cheeky. Very important to set this up, very simple to do. In part 2, Thomas goes about his business of the day, but ends up going out to the mines. There's some troublesome trucks there to be shuffled around, but very importantly, there's also a sign there. That sign sets up the jeopardy in this episode. In fact, I think that sign is one of the most important elements of this episode. Is Thomas going to obey the sign, or is Thomas going to ignore the sign? Of course, he's going to ignore it, because we've already learned he's a risk taker when he was talking to Gordon. In the end, Thomas ignores a sign and has a crash. And I love the section where the Fat Controller comes in. There's a shadow of the Fat Controller looming in on the side of Thomas here. And as a viewer, you think, oh, is Thomas in trouble here? Or is that shadow going to be the help that gets Thomas out of the hole? These are very important bits of visuals, because the Fat Controller is a very, very important element in all this storytelling. Who comes to the rescue? Of course, it's the engine that Thomas gave a hard time to earlier in the day. Gordon turns up and pulls Thomas out of the hole. And this is such a simple story told in such a beautiful way. This is what makes Thomas & Friends magical. And in the end, of course, it talks about having an alliance. But of course, alliances don't last, do they? It's Thomas & Friends, but it's really Thomas & Frenemies. Thomas & Friends works best when it's Thomas & Frenemies. Unfortunately, Thomas & Friends these days has become Thomas and Friends and Friends and Friends and Friends, and it doesn't work when it's done like that. For too many years on YouTube, I've taken a look at a lot of Thomas & Friends toys, collectibles, playsets and merchandise. I've seen some beautiful things along the way, things that are very close to my heart, things that I cherish. Unfortunately, I've been exposed to the other end of the spectrum, the stuff that when you look at it, you sort of go, why has this changed? Who asked for this change? And what I called it was change for change's sake. There seemed to be a lot of this going on over the last, say, 10 to 12 years. I wonder who's behind that then. And I think one of the all-time classic change for change's sakes that should never ever have seen the light of day was something called Thomas Wood. To get your head around Thomas Wood, all you need to know is it replaced one of the all-time classic Thomas and Friends toys called Thomas Wooden Railway. It was something that nobody ever asked to have changed. Thomas Wood was also magical because all of a sudden the track that it ran on didn't connect to any other wooden railway track. So the whole system alienated itself away to being this magical thing that in the end nobody wanted. But we had to go through the change that nobody asked for to understand that sometimes change for change's sake just becomes a giant train wreck. To put a positive spin on change for change's sake, think of it like this. If you're a collector and you enjoy different things, hey, Thomas & Friends is the perfect thing to get into. Every couple of years, it's going to be shaken about, and what's going to be presented to you is going to be different than before. That's going to be exciting. But if you want to have a stable Thomas & Friends experience, my advice is really simple. Go and buy the Thomas & Friends stuff from the Japanese market. Buy what Tomy make. Yes, they do the All Engines Go variation as well, but their core designs of the Thomas & Friends stuff has stuck to the classic Thomas & Friends realm, and I think there's a lot of good in sticking with the classic stuff. My final part of my ramble here. Okay, Thomas & Friends has got to 80 years old. There's not many franchises set up to entertain people that last 80 years. Many burn out in short time. My biggest fear is that Thomas & Friends is going to struggle to get to 100 years old, and I'll explain it like this. When I go out to buy Thomas & Friends stuff these days at my local shopping mall, a couple of years ago there used to be 7 retailers that carried this stuff. In 2024 and 2025, I'm now down to only 1 retailer that carries the Thomas & Friends goodies. You got to ask yourself, how did we get into this situation? What's the cause and effect here? My gut feeling is that Thomas & Friends All Engines Go has a lot to do with the anguish that we're in at the moment. That's my gut feeling. I think the rectification of this is starting to happen, and the fact that we've now seen the Down the Mine pilot trailer magically found, restored and released says to all of us that, hey, maybe Mattel are starting to wake up to the train wreck that they have created. Now let's move on in this video. Let's go to that sole retailer that's selling the Thomas & Friends stuff near where I live in Sydney. And maybe what I find there leaches back to some of the things I've just said. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm out there looking for the new classic stuff, and yeah, guess what I find? Okay, I just called this the middle of May of 2025. I'm looking for the new classic Thomas & Friends stuff, the 80th anniversary stuff. I've come to my only retailer in a very big shopping mall near where I live in Sydney, and this is where the Thomas & Friends area is here. I can't see what I'm looking for. I'm starting to get really pissed off, I can tell you. Just walking along like this, you can see what's here. It doesn't look that much different to when I was last here a couple of weeks ago. I think there's some more of the talking engines here. If I press James, you'll hear all the Nias talk. Isn't that fantastic? But hell. A couple of the twin packs, as I'll call it. Looks like Percy and Ashima are in Ashmere there. Okay, and no one else. That's the metal collection that's here. You can sort of see who's here. Really much of the same as when I was last here. Diesel, Thomas and Dandy the Stupid Flipper. Who doesn't sell is there. I'm just going down to the next shelves here, and a lot of empty shelves going on there. I do notice this pack here has returned, although I can't see a price here, but that's sort of situation normal from what I've seen going on here. Okay, yeah, I think that's always the one to get. Maybe just wait for the price to come down if we can work out what price it is. Get it when it's on special. That's my advice to you. Coming along here, yeah, there's a lot of blowing stuff here, stuff that has no relationship to what should be here. One of these, I call them builder track pack things, is here. Looks like the last of that is here. The next shelf along, looking pretty tragic. Okay, these sets, I'm pretty sure these were around before. I mean, really, they need staff to come and present stuff forward like this. If I do it correctly, I might get paid, hey? It's nice to see the Percy 6-in-1 set as in the AEG version of it. I think the one that preceded that was the all-time classic set. Again, it's not a $99. That's not the price of that. I can't see the price ticket in the right spot there. Going along here again, it just reminds me I've got to go and take a look out the front to see how many of those are left behind. Talking Bulstrode and Which Way Bridge, blah blah. bit of a shelf sitter, and down the bottom is more of the tables. Another talking bull strode there. If I reach right down, you'll see what's there. If I stand here and go down slowly, you'll see the whole picture here. I suppose seeing empty shelves and all that, look, it tells you stuff is selling, but unfortunately we need stock to come in here, and stock to come in here fast. And remember, I've said this many times, you can't make a cent from an empty shelf. Not 1 cent. Okay, the final thing to look at is the babyfied My First Knapford station. It was on special here before. I think it was $23. It's $29 at full price again. Notice they didn't sell when they're on special. Maybe when it hits $5, I'll come in and I'll grab a few, but not before that point. I've always had this feeling that babyfied AEG is a very hard sell. That's what I noticed from finding this stuff in store. Time to move on to the next thing in this video. No pun intended. While I was in looking at the Thomas stuff, I saw this most bizarre toy, and I tell you what, if I presented this to YouTube, I'd be flagged off the site in a flash. Brings back memories of looking at this style of stuff, and next thing you found you were demonetized. I wonder who's daring enough to present one of these to YouTube. It looks like someone's busted into this. I'd hate to peek down there to see what's going on. Looks like some sort of head in there. There's these laying here as well. This doesn't look natural to me. There's also another one here. I noticed down here, yeah, this has been broken into as well. So stuff's been grabbed out of these, which sort of says to me, when I see that, it's popular. That's what's here. If I go up like that, there's this here. There's these packs here like this. It's $29. Well, then again, is the price right or wrong? Okay, I've got no idea what this is. I really don't want to know, because if I look at stuff like this on YouTube, I'm pretty sure bad stuff's going to happen to me. Okay, yeah, one of the most unusual things I've seen in a long time. You look at something like that on YouTube these days, you're going to get flushed off the site. No pun intended. Before I leave here, there is something that I've found that I want, and it's related to a Minecraft movie. Some of the stock has reappeared in store. This is the larger figures. This was the one which was very, very popular. You saw Steve sell out, and the creepers tended to be left behind. It's the same with the smaller figures here. It was always the creepers left behind, and the one that I found the most difficult to find, I've actually found some, that's the wolf. Okay, so I hope it's a freaking wolf. Yeah, sorry if I'm wrong. I wouldn't know a freaking thing. I just know it was hard to find. The skeleton was also hard to find, and the Steve is extremely hard to find in the smaller figures. I'm going to get those two there. And just to show you what else is here, there's actually a few of those here. There's a few crept on other shelves as well. There's this here. It looks like some sort of blind doodah thing. I would not touch that for the world. Down here, that's just generic. I'll call it generic Minecraft stuff. And there's this here in relation to the movie. Because I haven't seen the movie and thrown the popcorn everywhere like everyone else does, I have no idea how that connects to the movie. Anyway, there is something here that I will grab. Boy, oh boy, this is hard to find. These puppies here are coming home with me. It's always fun going shopping, isn't it? I hope you understand when I'm being sarcastic. And it's sort of interesting, before I smack these open, to take a look at the way they're set up in box. I think with Frosty Diesel, the gaps are set up pretty similar to what you're going to get once it's out of its thing and running. But the curious one to me is the way James is done, because look at the gap between the tender and the engine. I don't think it's like that once we set it up. Yeah, look, if I talk about the back of them, it just sounds like me repeating myself. You know, it's a shame that we don't get what we need to see here. How will I open these up? Will I be normal or will I be unconventional? I think I'll be normal. Where's that military grade chicken when I need it? Okay, chicken, are you ready? He sounds clucky. I've got them set up. I'm going to do James second, and I'm going to whack in the Diesel first. Unfortunately, the footage of the unboxing via the military grade chicken, I'm going to have to bin that footage. It became extremely violent. It wasn't a very pleasant unboxing visually. And the worst aspect to it is I've actually killed the military grade chicken. And I know when people see that, they're going to report me to PETA. You know, I've got a whole stack of people who will do anything they can to sink me. I've seen that for many years now. I'm very aware these days YouTube's a very different site versus what I started with years ago. I did try to revive the chicken. Totally dead. Let me gather this together. We'll probably take a look at Splash Tank James first. It's going to be quite interesting. Okay, Splash Tank James, all engines go. There's some very obvious things going on here. There's some very subtle things as well that you need another James to look at to work it out. I'm not sure whether they're chocolate waves. I don't watch this show. Is it connected to Frosting Diesel and Birthday Cake Thomas? Were they making cakes and stuff? I don't want to know. Maybe you know, maybe you can tell me. I think the line work works better when it's black. I've had arguments with people about this. I tell you what, you start that argument and it never stops. There's been a lot of discussion about these couple of lengths. We won't get into that in this one, maybe another time. The face on this is nice. Probably the joy of this is we get a bit of a different face. If I bring up an ordinary all engines go James, you can see the difference there. It's more of a cheekier looking to the side look, it's some more smirky. So that's the joy of all engines go. They can just print on a different face. But of course, all you've got is a little button nose. The funnel angle is pushed back, very all engines go-esque. The angle across the cab is very, very subtle. It is there. It's extremely subtle on the tender engines. The tank engines, unfortunately, they like to change that and give it a big wedge, and I've never understood why. Let me go in closer and I'll bring up another James to point out something which is very subtle in this one. Okay, looking across the top of James's here, this is on top of the boiler. This is Splash Tank James. This is an ordinary James, both AEG models. If I didn't have the ordinary one, I may not have noticed the extremely subtle, very subtle silver fleck which has been put into the plastic here. It's unfortunate it's so subtle because it's almost non-existent. I think a lot of people are going to miss it. Maybe the flecking works better on a darker model. On this red here, it's turned it into almost like a shade of pink when you compare it to the normal James, but I just wonder why they bothered when it's such a subtle effect, and I think a lot of people wouldn't even notice it. I'm sorry to be a hard taskmaster on that one. If you see it wider here, maybe you can start to see how it's failed. If it was done properly and flecked to a degree that was very noticeable, it would have been a real winner, but we didn't get there in the end. And I've got an example here of, it's a flecked Thomas, I think it's a steaming one, and when the flecking is done nicely, you can clearly see the fleck spangle and sparkle as you turn it around, and it's very noticeable. Mind you, it probably works better, a silver fleck on a darker colour, whereas this red here is probably disguising a lot of what goes on, but I think the fleck in this plastic just isn't a heavy enough grade or spangly enough. So yeah, it seems like a bit of a missed opportunity there. We could have had some Thomas and Friends glory if it was done right, but at least we've got some nice different faces. Okay, this is James's tender. We've got that chocolatey wave continuing through there. At least the 5 has got a different colour around it this time around. You're looking for that fleck now, aren't you? It's extremely subtle. Extremely subtle. It's a shame because if it was done correctly, or done to a higher degree, or should I say more noticeably, it would have been spectacular, but we never got there. Looking at an ordinary James's tender just side by side like that, you can, well, I always struggled with the line work they gave it. That's actually a stronger variation. I've seen some very, very faint line work on this. The 5, a red around the yellow 5 on a red tender never worked. I don't know who signed off on that, but when you put them side by side here, remember we're trying to look at that fleck that's meant to be between one and the other, and if I flare it in the light here, maybe you'll get a hint of it. But it's so subtle, it's almost like they've, why did you bother, eh? Why did you bother? If you're going to do something, at least do it correctly. But hey, they're the tenders. If you like your tender looking a bit different, you're going to get the Splash Tank James. And thinking of splash tanks, this is his piece of rolling stock. It's nice, it's got a bit of a, well, it looks like it's carrying water, but hey, there could be anything else in there, who knows. This piece, I thought it was all one piece, but it actually comes off, and guess what we're left with when we take this off? Yeah, it's my favourite generic wagon. Really, I got so many of these, it's not funny. They're really boring when they're by themselves, but the joy about them is you can connect things onto them. Yeah, so I suppose this is different. I've never seen this before. And that's what comes with Splash Tank James. Okay, Frosting Diesel. I am a diesel collector, so I'm happy with any variation of diesel I can get. You can see he's been mincing about with the frosting. In Australia, we call it icing. I think frosting is an Americanism that we've picked up on. The other side looks like this. Okay, nice dollop of frosting there. The back is a little bit plain, but the frosting gives the buffer details on the back, which is nice. Across the top, it looks like this. So yeah, he's really been making cakes by the looks of it. Wow, what a character drift versus what he used to get up to. I mean, from being Diesel 10's henchman to now making cakes, and it looks like he's been making cakes with Thomas. I'm not sure whether they're connected, but there seems to be a lot of packs related to frosting and cakes and stuff. I don't watch the show, I don't want the brain damage. Maybe you can tell me whether there's some epic frosting episode. It's one of these characters that I haven't reviewed the normal Diesel. I should do, because I've got a lot of Diesels I can make comparisons to. I have got the normal Diesel here, as in the AEG style, and we can take a look at how the face is different on the Frosting Diesel. I mean, that's the joy of probably the AEG stuff. They just print on a different face. And as I said, if you're a collector, you're going to be happy because it's another variation. The purpley colour on Diesel, I've never quite understood. Well, that's interesting, because it's given him a smaller purple section there on the Frosty one versus the normal one. And looking at, just look where that purpley colour is. That colour's different there to it as well. So there's actually quite a few little differences going on between the two of these. I'm just looking at the amount they've put that. Yeah, it's the same on that side as well. It's got me a bit curious now. What have they done across the top? Yeah, well, I think Diesel works best when he's just black and he's got like a devious Diesel face. I mean, that's the thing. How devious is that? There's none. Zero. That's the problem. That's why AEG's got the big problem. Because you've got rid of the frenemies aspect to it. It's so simple when you think about what's missing in this franchise. It's just, you can't have and friends and friends and friends. It doesn't work. Anyway, let me just bring up what I'll call it one of the classic Diesels, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I'm bringing it up because of the scale similarities, and that's the Bachmann Diesel. It's got the beautiful CGI face, in a sense when Diesel was still sleazy and slimy and grimy, which is what Diesel's all about. You know, Diesel mucks around, but from his mucking around, he always learns a lesson that, you know, in the end, mucking around gets you nowhere. That's sort of, you know, in a sense, what Diesel's all about. But my God, the way AEG depicts Diesel is just so sad. It's just, you know, getting back to scale similarities, very similar scale similarities going on there with Bachmann. I should show underneath, and then you might get excited because then you're seeing the wheels. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. There's another Diesel set that I'm after. I won't talk about it here now. It's impossible to find. You know, I am a Diesel collector. I do get happy when there's different variations, but hey, you know, this is different. It's going to look nice in my collection. I'm trying to stay positive. The rolling stock that comes with Frosting Diesel, it's this. It looks like some sort of frosting monster. It looks like something that would be doing the frosting. I don't watch the show, so I don't know. Yeah, and this does come off, and guess what we end up with when that comes off? It's one of those bloody flat generic wagons. I should bring out my collection of these. You would be astonished. And then there is another section, and I'm still holding that monster in my hand there. That's looks like a tower. Okay, maybe the frosting is in this tank here. And it looks like you mount that to that. Okay, if I go back a bit, you'll see it like that. Okay, so it must be one of the episodes, or someone's just had a nightmare dream and they've gone to the toy factory and they've made it up one night. And of course you can take this off as well, and guess what you end up with? One of those, again, something you can basically just throw straight in the bin. Yeah, if I'm smart, I can put that back on like that, and yeah, that's what you get. So you can have fun, you can disassemble, you can reassemble, but you can also throw all this in the bin as well, if you're that way inclined. Okay, I've got the turntable out. I've got Frosting Diesel on the turntable. It does look quite nice. I've also got Splash Tank James here. There's been a lot of chatter about the gap that goes on between the tender and the engine. Extreme Change has talked about how to change couplings here. It's a very interesting video he's done. Yeah, I don't need to look into it now because someone else has solved the problem. I'll get these two on their way. Looks like the turntable's being nice to me. James looks spectacular. It's a shame the fleck's not flecking. And along comes Frosting Diesel. Looks pretty good. Looks much nicer when they're up and running in my books. And James is going to blank off like that. Look at that. Beautiful, James. There's Frosting Diesel. It's going to look spectacular in my diesel collection, that one, I can tell you, yeah. Any variation is a joyful thing. And that certainly is a variation. It's interesting, they're sort of both playing the same game here. Maybe Frosting Diesel's a little bit quicker. Yeah, Frosting Diesel is a little bit faster than the Splash Tank James. I notice he's catching up, and it's the mystery to these. I don't know why some outperform the other ones. I don't know whether it just comes down to batteries or the way the motors are set up in these. I know they're very, very simple design. There's not much going on inside these. And if I just put a brake on the turntable out of my finger, we can take a look at the rolling stock there. The Frosting Monster, that's probably what it's called, that Diesel's got. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And if I'm really smart and clever, I can make up a monster as Diesel's moving along there, hopefully without causing a train wreck. Okay, if I do that and do that, oops. Oh, I don't know how I pulled that off. There you go, I've got the Frosting Tower of Power. Looks pretty good. And now James is going to come up and give the biffo. Yeah, I don't know, my heart is very much on the Diesel 3-pack. You know, if that had the silver fleck working, I would have gone for the James, but it's a missed opportunity. I've said it before in this video. Yeah, so the argy-bargy's still carrying on like that. I will pull apart the Frosting Monster without causing a train wreck. I think I can do this. Ugh. And I'll try to just get that monster down there like, dang. That's why Diesel's got a face like that, because that's what's happened. All makes sense now, doesn't it? Frippin' train wreck. But that's all the fun of mucking around, isn't it? And I can't be doing too much of that, or people will say I'm entertaining certain styles of people. And if you start doing that, unfortunately on these days you're going to get flagged off the site in a flash. And I'll just very, very carefully rectify that there. Okay. Away Diesel goes, but don't worry, Splash Tank James is not far behind. What I'll do is I'll get Frosty Diesel into the middle track there, and I'll shoot some slow motion of them doing the different speeds. If I don't do the slow motion, you say, you're not, yeah, playing dirty with me, are you? Okay, that's going to happen like that. Okay, now that's going to come along and smack James in the face. I somehow have to get this back on. I'll need two hands to do so. It's going to turn into a train wreck, isn't it? Of course it is. Okay, well, can James sort that out? No. Good on you, James. You just proved yourself to be totally frippin' useless. I can take advantage of that train wreck and make things right here. I will get to the slow motion. I've got a few things to say about a Diesel that I'm having trouble finding. And just the anomalies with the supply chain, which really get me cranky, I tell you. Really annoying trying to collect this stuff these days. It's verging on impossible. Okay, let me shoot some slow-mo. While we're watching the slow-mo here, I'll tell you a little toy hunting saga that should never be going on, but welcome to Thomas & Friends 2025. Not that long ago, I saw, I think it was an American YouTuber talking about some All Engines Go 3-packs. One of them in particular, I thought, wow, that looks pretty impressive. It involved diesel, and I'm a diesel collector, and I thought this would be one to get. This is going to be one of the nicer diesel 3-packs that I've ever had. I thought I'd go and look at the few retailers that sell Thomas & Friends stuff in Australia. We're down to our final few. This is where we're at in 2025. I do notice under the Greatest Moments banner that there's actually 2 3-packs that I've never seen in store of the few stores that sell this stuff. One of them is Beachy Nia. It looks interesting, more so for the fact it's got that sandcastle as part of its rolling stock, and I thought that looked very cool. I'm not into Nia, but I like sandcastles. The other one there, and this is the obvious thing because I'm a diesel collector, is Carnival Diesel. Very cool, set up like a carnival ride, like a roller coaster, and you think, wow, this is one I'm definitely going to get. It's going to be one of the more beautiful diesel 3-packs that I've ever had. Yet, I can't find this in store, mind you. I've got to traverse huge areas of Sydney to find retailers that now sell Thomas & Friends stuff, and this is the problem that we've fallen into. We've got to a point now where the supply chain is crippled, and the few retailers that sell Thomas & Friends have it in a very, very small selection in their toy department. How do we get here? This is the big question. We're meant to be celebrating 80 years. My God, it seems more like a funeral to me. Okay, I think we've learned enough about these 3-packs here. I will just grab them. I think, well, the pick for me is Frosty Diesel. I think that's the one because, well, I'm a diesel collector. I'll just grab Diesel and just very carefully put him here, and I will grab Splash Tank James next without causing too much of a train wreck, and I will just very gently push them over there like that. I'm going to pick up on something that I should have spoken about in the previous video, and I think a few people got cranky because I didn't talk about the beautiful James out of the mine set, and I've forgotten what that set was called, but it's got a nice custom face. And I'm going to get this up and running because I've got the thing that's got no name, although it has got a face, and I'm just going to get this going like that in a way to power this Gordon. Let me just get Gordon when he comes back around the other way. Okay, so that's Metal Collection Gordon, and it's a nice one because it has a different face, and I tell you what, its design is actually not too bad, and I'm going to prove that because I'm going to show you what came before this one. Under my hand here is something of Thomas & Friends Nightmares, and I'm just going to get it spinning like this. I'm just going to get this, hopefully without being too much of a train wreck. I don't know how I pulled that off, but I've got the Gordon that was the push-along style. It's when they decided, oh, we're going to make the little hand-push trains also run on the motorised track. Metal engine, push along, whatever you want to call it. That series of Thomas and Friends stuff was the horror box, and that's what preceded the All Engines Go variation, which looks a lot better. Just going over the back of the turntable there, that push along metal engine variant of Gordon, just a shocker. Those big wheels and the way they're done just completely ruins it. And it makes the Metal Collection All Engines Go variant of Gordon, which I'll just get to go along now, it looks 10,000% better. It really does. It was a very, very unusual time for the Thomas and Friends realm when that stuff was getting about. I think a lot of people really struggled with it, and you probably appreciate All Engines Go Metal Collection a lot more now. And to remind you of this era, it was back when we were celebrating the 75th year of Thomas Friends, and we had things like that there. Somehow pulled that off, the Diamond Thomas. I've got some interesting memories of that Thomas there. It was one that was initially quite hard to find, and then all of a sudden, the price dumped to $1. And that said much about what was going on there. Well, I've got to say, it's always exciting collecting this stuff. We've had all sorts of things where it changes up. We've had too many times when it changes down. And it's just sad we don't have a lot more of the changing up going on. But hey, maybe things will change.
Oh my flipping god! Oh my god, I've got a story to tell you! I've got a big story to tell you! And this loser gets excited about the lost pilot down the flipping mine! Well, it's a bit like the flipping iceberg saving the Titanic, isn't it? Just think about that for a moment! Anyway, this clown, he's officially killed his military-grade rubber chicken. Come closer and I'll tell you a very, very disturbing story. But be very careful, I look silly without a hat. Anyway, he started to unbox those 3-packs, and the chicken's had enough of him. He's had enough. The chicken just gets treated like a bunch of crap. And the chicken's got rights. Rubber chickens do have rights. And for the fact they've got rights, I'm going to call better and going to say, this clown's abusing rubber chickens. How dare him? How dare him? Rubber chickens have rights. And what we're going to do, we're going to expose this clown. I've got the footage. He tried to delete it, and I got to his camera and undeleted the footage. We're going to finish with this vile footage of him killing the military-grade rubber chicken. It's vile. He's lost it. He knows nothing. I've had enough of him abusing the chicken. Save rubber chickens, I say, save rubber chickens!
Okay, chicken, are you ready? Ooh, he's sounding very hot. I'm going to do James second in the whacking. I'm going to start with Diesel first. Get a big breath of air in, and here we go. Come on, work for me. Talk, chicken, talk. Oh, come on. Oh, my. Come on. Oh, it's almost there. Come on, God. Oh my. I think the chicken's going to die. I got Diesel out. Oh my god, I need a breath. Okay, I'm gonna get James out. God, I think I need a new chicken. Oh my god. Come on, talk to me. The chicken stopped talking. I have to give it. Chicken's actually died. Oh my. I think the chicken's dead. Oh, the chicken's dead. The chicken.